And we want to bring you that feature that you've been looking forward to, because at Sachilbo D Primary School, learning is a fight against the odds. Pupils do not just lie on the floor to write. They share overcrowded classrooms where multiple grade levels are taught together due to a dire shortage of teachers. With only 2 teachers handling the entire school, lessons are merged, making quality education nearly impossible. Hunger deepens the crisis as pupils go through the day on empty stomachs with no access to the school feeding program. Emmanuel Jivenu has more in our latest episode of education series, Crumbling Start.
If you're happy and you know, clap your hands.
Education, often hailed as the foundation of the future, is falling apart in this farming community. At Sachilbo D Basic School, the earlier stages of learning have become a struggle no child should endure.
We are 3 professional teachers in the school year. With that number, we divided the classes, the grades into 3, because we want each level should also have something. So one of the problems is the classes are not even enough. So we have 3 class rooms and we have to use those classrooms. So we have divided them into 3: KG 1, 2, and Basic 1 in one class, P2, P3 in another class, P4, P5, and 6. And we are handling them. We are not finding things easy. It's very difficult for us, but we are managing. Be okay, man.
Multi-grade teaching is not a choice here. It is a necessity, one that compromises the quality of education and the future of these children.
Frankly speaking, we have not been fair. We have never been fair to these young children. The children are suffering. How can a child sit on the floor to write? Some, even we have to buy mats for them to be able to sit so that they will be a little bit clean.
The recent delivery of textbooks to Sachilbo D Basic School offers little solace when the lack of desk leaves these books vulnerable to wear and tear.
With the textbooks, if you don't have any a sitting place, with the textbook, these children, they are young. They are not like grown up like us. We can hold and write. They are small. We are teaching them. But with the textbook, how would they write? So at least they should come to our aid.
The school feeding program is a lifeline for education, providing meals that boost enrollment, keep children in school, and help them focus on learning. Unfortunately, pupils at Sachilbo D Basic School go through their day on empty stomachs with hunger, competing against education and causing enrollment to decline.
The school feeding, which will have also helped to increase the enrollment, I and my head, we applied. Still, we have not had any information about it. We're also planning to even mobilize ourselves to see if the community can help. Then we'll do some gardening for the school. When we harvest, then we'll be using it to do porridge for the children in the morning. That will also help them to come. Okay, you are welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, we need teachers.
I'm a native of this community, but recently I completed my education in Iba. From there, after that I completed my education, I said, no, let me come back to my first station or my old school to help my junior brothers so that they can also be well educated from me.
Joshua's story is one of hope and sacrifice, but even his addition cannot fill the gap left by a shortage of professional teachers.
On the average, most of our primary schools have less than 4 teachers. On the average, most of them have 2 teachers, 3 teachers. The school that we could say is very lucky will be in Tatale Township here, maybe about 5 teachers, the primary school. So that's how bad the staffing situation is.
And I doubt how a class 1 child can learn class 3 subjects. And they all learn the same thing. So it means the lower ones are being polluted because they can not even pronounce two-letter words, how can they be writing the sentence to read the whole sentence?
Claire, please pay attention.
For these children, the future seems uncertain. Poor infrastructure and inadequate staff have created a crisis that demands urgent intervention.
The children themselves are quite cooperative, but for some time now we are also trying to also involve much attention from their parents so that they will help together with us to bring the children to board. Though they are all doing well and then they are cooperating, but the academic aspect is also low at the moment. That's for my experience. I've seen that they need a lot. And when I came, I also tried to find out why it is this way. I got to realize that there were insufficient infrastructural activities that will support the children to pick up the knowledge they needed.
These children represent the promise of tomorrow, but without desks to sit on, classroom to learn in, or food to sustain them, how can they carry the weight of a nation's future? It is time to act. It is time to make fairness a reality for every child in Ghana. Emmanuel Jivenu, Joy News, Sachilbo, Northern Region.
And that is the plight of those in the Sachilbo DA school, some of what they have to face on a daily basis. And it's part of our latest documentary, Crumbling Start. But as we get into that, we have guests in the studio from the School for Life who joined the conversation. Wedad Shaibu is director of the School for Life. We also have Ayuba Abukari, head of programs and partnerships, also with the School for Life. A very good morning to you, Wedad.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having us.
I'm just curious, as we kickstart the conversation, School for Life, what do you do? Tell us about what you do.
School for Life is basically about education, basic education, but basic education in particular specific areas of Ghana, areas that are largely deprived, areas that lack their basic educational resources for children to thrive. So basically our work is anchored on the belief that every child in Ghana should have access to basic education, regardless of their location, regardless of their gender, ethnicity, and social status. And that is actually what brought the organization into being 30 years ago. And
did you say 30?
30. So
30
we are
years.
actually celebrating our 30th anniversary.
Wow.
Yes. So essentially, we work by advocating for the government and other relevant stakeholders to ensure that basic access to quality basic education is achieved in Ghana.
Okay. It's been a number of years since I started hearing of School for Life. Ayuba, but it appears you work predominantly in the northern belt of the country. Is that the case?
Yes. Yeah, we work in 7 regions out of the 16 administrative regions of Ghana.
Okay.
So yes, we work in basically in the northern sector. We work in northern region of East, Upper West, OT, and then we also work in the Ashanti region. Yeah.
Okay, which usually is also added to the northern belt of the country for some logistics. So you've added it in there as well.
Exactly.
Are you hoping to get into other regions?
Yes, we are hoping. Like Wedad said, we don't want to leave any child behind. And our flagship program is what we call the complementary basic education, where we mop up out of school children and then put them in the formal school. And so wherever we have that incidence, then we want to be there to support so that some children are not left out. Because if a child is past 7, 8 years and is not in school, they are likely to miss basic education. And so these are the children we look out for in, deprived areas. and then bring them into school. And in the Ashanti region, we have, if you go to Central Afram Plains and then Asante Achin North, those areas, we have these children there. So that's why we are intervening there. So wherever we find that there are children who are likely to miss out on basic education, then we want to bring them on board.
Without, before Sweetie comes in, is this why the concept of leaving no one behind? Is that why you partnered us in Crumbling Start, so that we bring to the fore the problems in these areas?
Yeah, very well so. I mean, for us, we think that as an organization, especially that we are just a non-governmental organization, our work is to complement the government. And we cannot do it alone. I mean, the problem of Ghana's basic education is overwhelming. And no single organization can achieve what we want to achieve, of leaving no one behind. So it is essential that we partner with various stakeholders who have interest in ensuring that basic education, and quality basic education for that matter, is provided to every Ghanaian child. We reach out to them, and that is why we partner with Joy News, because we know that Joy News is passionate about decent social provision of social services, including education. And you have the platform that would ensure that the critical issues, the compelling evidence, reach out to those who really need to hear, those who really need to see what the challenges that children in so many communities, so-called rural and deprived areas, are facing. And so we really deem it very necessary to partner with Joy News, because you have a huge platform that can engender that publicity, bringing to the fore, to the public limelight, the lived realities of children, I mean, who form greater proportion of our population in Ghana, who are largely neglected. So, it is the reason why we partner. Because
I'm really excited to see you in the studio here. When I grow up, I do want to be like you, full-time charity work. Yeah, hopefully I'm rich enough so I can do that. But I mean, one of the things I love about what we do as media is exactly what you said, that we shine lights on these issues. And this story, as much as it makes me sad, it makes me hopeful, because we're having a conversation on it, and interested parties, the authorities, those who can help, will see and come to your aid or come to our aid. I want to start from, I mean, we've just told the story. What was the highlights for you? For me, it's just the mere fact that children have to lie on their stomachs just so they can get what you are calling comprehensive basic education. But what was the highlights for you?
It's sad, isn't it? But the story of Sachilbo D Primary is one of multiple deprivation, as you can see. They lack decent classroom infrastructure, they lack furniture, they lack sufficient teachers required to provide quality teaching and learning. And you might have also observed that the community is faced with acute poverty, but yet they do not have school feeding program.
Yeah.
So what it means is that children in this school have to endure on empty stomachs to learn. So that is why I mean, it's a combination of deprivations of several layers of deprivation. And what it means is that we are basically setting these children up for failure. But I also want to note that the story of Sachilbo is not just a single story. It's not just limited to Sachilbo. It's widespread, especially in that part of the country where we work.
Right. Ayuba, I want to, have you been able to reach any authorities on any explanation as to why these children have been left out of the free school feeding program, I mean? Have you got anything, any explanations at all so far?
Yes, so we have been working closely with the Ghana Education Service and then the district assemblies in the various districts we work. And we have been engaging with them. And you know, the school feeding program is challenged. Not all schools are covered. And then even the amount paid per child, it is very small until this budget that they have increased it a bit.
Which is still, if you ask me, insufficient.
It's
but
insufficient. and so the explanation is that there are no funds to actually cover every school. And you know, every now and then schools keep coming as the population grows. Schools keep growing. And then budgetary allocations have not been made to cater for, all these schools. So essentially the problem is the assemblies and GES want to actually have feeding programs in all the schools, but due to budgetary constraints, they cannot have in all the schools.
Now I want us to measure impact, just to drum home the point that these children really need help. How many of these children have actually reached a certain level of literacy where you can say that they can compete with maybe other pupils from basic schools here in Accra or other major cities?
Yes, so if we look at the surveys we have done and the researches we have, it shows that where we work, competencies levels are very low. Children in such schools, the statistics tell us that just about 6% to 9% of those children are able to read and comprehend what they are reading at the appropriate age.
What?
Yes.
6 to 9?
Yes, compared to national level figures. Yeah, and that is even a challenge in the education sector, getting real-time research to use to diagnose children's problem and to be able to attend to them. The national standardized test is not forthcoming. And so when we are talking, we still use the EGMA results to talk about these things, because the system has it's even betraying us. We don't have real-time data, to talk about this. But when you go into the school like this and even try to greet them in English, you'll be surprised.
Yes. I saw a video on social media. Good morning.
Who can be able to respond very well.
Oh my God.
Thoughtless of actually reading and then writing and comprehending. And so that is the scale of the problem. And like with that said, it's not just this school. We have a number of such schools across the northern sector and where we work.
Are you able to give us an estimate, just so we can see? Is there a number, like how many schools, off the top of your head, do you think need that urgent attention in terms of infrastructure, even the feeding program and all that? If you can make an estimate, that would be fine. Otherwise,
we have the estimates.
How many schools are we talking about?
If you look at Africa Education Watch did a research, and they are telling us that we have about 5,300 schools that are under trees.
Which the Education Minister Haruna Idrisu reiterated recently.
Yes.
Over 5,000 schools were under trees.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting because just a few years ago, I remember one of the meets the press interactions at the Information Ministry with Kojo Ponkroma.
Yeah.
They made mention at the time, I think it was over 2,000 per the Ghana Education Service or the Ministry of Education, 2,700 or something.
Yeah.
And now we are looking at about 5,000 of them.
And that is the problem. And so look at the number, it's increasing, right? Which means that we are not paying attention to that. And what saddens us is, as we are reviewing the budget that has been read, we haven't seen any explicit provision made to actually, address this problem, even though it was part of the manifesto. We haven't seen, a direct provision to address this. And so we have.
By this, you mean schools under trees?
Yes.
And, schools with dilapidating infrastructure and all that.
Structures, there hasn't been any. Unless of course they are hiding it somewhere we don't know, but we haven't seen it explicitly. Which we think is worrying. If we have this situation and like we have alluded, it is not attended to, then the dilapidation continues.
Right.
With
that, you can come in. Also, when you are done with your reflection, I want to know where we start from in terms of how to actually help these children.
So we're still talking about statistics, available data from MS. suggests that close to about 30% of KGs and 35% of primary schools. With KG, the 30% translate into about over 20,000 schools. And then the 35% of primary school translate into over 76,000 schools that need major repairs. They are dilapidated and they need major repairs. And this is a data as way back in 2023. And as we speak now, it might be worse looking at the trend. So it's like we have a problem in our hands, we don't attend to it, and many more emerge. In terms of pupil-teacher ratio, which was also highlighted as a problem here, if you look at the average in the deprived areas, we have an average of about 58 pupil to one teacher ratio, on average. Northeast and Savannah situation is even worse. We have 85 pupil to a trained teacher in the Savannah region, and 80 to a teacher in the northern region. These are what the data says. These are the practical realities that children are faced with.
Right.
So when I said earlier that Sachilbo situation is not just a peculiar one and that it is pervasive, this is what we are talking about.
Okay.
And it's like there is no proactive and deliberate effort to dealing with the problems that emerge, and many more comes up, and that compounds the situation.
This is your forte, so I'm tempted to ask, what will, proactive measures look like?
Proactive measures look like, one, as my colleague indicated earlier, in the provision of resources. At the start of it, it has to do with how we plan. And for government, the planning stage starts with the budgetary allocations, the intentions, the budgetary allocations, what the government intends to do. So it is not just merely about saying that I will do A, B, C, D, and leave it at that. If in what is stated in our party manifesto, some budgets are presented, and you don't really seem to see anything to the effect that the intentions are really meant to be realized, then it is problematic. Secondly, it is not just about the budgetary allocation, but it is also about the disbursement. Oftentimes, we have always been faced about a situation where budgets are red, and so much is allocated to sectors and institutions. But at the end of the day, maybe only less than a quarter gets there. So purposeful and intentional or deliberate proactiveness means that whatever we say we will do, we want to see it in at the very least projected in our budget. And then also the resources are disbursed. And then those who are supposed to implement are also held accountable to do the implementation. In the sense that if resources are disbursed to the institutions, to what extent so it's now then the utilization. So if you track budgetary, in terms of budget management, you start with the intentions within the budget projections that is red environment. And then you looked at the disbursement. How much of what is set? So first, how much has been allocated? Is it adequate? If it is not, then it is problematic. And even with what has been projected, how much of it goes to the institutions and sectors that it has been projected to do?
Right.
If so less goes there, then it is problematic. And beyond just the disbursement, how is it utilized? And it is, for us, it is important for us to follow all these trends to ensure that whatever is allocated is disbursed, then what is disbursed is utilized.
We have to be
to
really
the very
intentional.
benefit of the children. Otherwise, we will not get anywhere.
A quick follow-up on those points. In the past, have you had designated funding for dealing with schools under trees?
That is the question, because usually it's also about lumping up resources. Okay, this so much goes to basic education. You hear so much, but it will interest you to know that much of what goes into the education sector, because that is where we work, and so at least we can speak to that. Much of it goes into, servicing salaries, wages, and also, so in terms of the real provision of the resources required for children to really effectively learn, there's little, if at all. And there isn't that targeted allocation. Like, let's say, okay, this is the problem at hand, and we are dedicating this so that if we dedicate this amount of money to it, we'll be able to eradicate the problem. That specific targeting is not really done in terms of our budgetary allocation as far as I have observed.
Which is why I specifically asked you that question. I'll come to you, Ayuba, because indeed the problem has been identified over time that we have schools under trees. There are general funds, and the Education Ministry has one of the biggest budgets, sometimes the biggest budget of all.
Of the social
so the question is, do we need more stratification when it comes to what goes where? But also knowing our educational system, sometimes you understand why there are no such delineations because of how much of a mesh the entire system is. But at least something I noted from the budget, which will also help those at the basic level, and I'd like us to talk about that. Free sanitary pads. As for SHS, I know you're talking about, but there's also a dedicated funding for free SHS. And then the free textbooks. The matters you are raising, very valid, and hopefully, I don't know whether usually a mid-year budget review will not bring in such changes, but hopefully moving forward, we can have dedicated funding for schools under trees. How do you react to these developments? How do you think they will impact free textbooks, free sanitary pads? What impact will they have? I think I want to start with Ayuba.
Thank you so much. Rightly so, for us, for purposes of addressing issues of equity, we think that, spelling out a specific budget for some of these things is critical, and that is what the government has tried to do. If we look at, we have a capitation grant. The increase is phenomenal, about 73% change in the increase over last year's budget. And you look at school feeding program, there is an increase, about 33% change. And if you look at textbooks, about 464% change, or 370% increase over last year's budget. And then the teacher training allowance, which I don't want to talk about, and then sanitary pads initiative. This is the first time we are allocating budget for that specifically. So it makes sense, for us to spell out, in each subsector or each budget line, what we want to use it for, so that it is clear. If we are tracking that budget line, like we just said, to its, point of utilization. But if it is lumped up, because this issue of schools under trees is very critical, and we've been talking about it.
Indeed.
It would have made sense if the government came out to say that we are dedicating a line for it. And in the government promise, we also heard about furniture for all. It was very pronounced. In the budget, we haven't seen, we would have expected to see a line on that. We haven't seen that. And look at those children, they were lying on their stomachs. You see? So we think that these, stratifications are very important so that it makes tracking easier for us. So we are told by statistics and data that about 40% of our children are lying on their stomachs. These children are part of those children.
About 40%.
40%, translating into about 1.1 million children.
Even now it's 2.3.
It's 2.3 now, right?
So where is this figure coming from? GSS?
The figure is from the EMIS
data. Yes.
It says that as at 2021, the MS data estimated that about 2.3 million do not have decks.
Right.
Yeah.
And considering that, from that time after, we have not really seen any deliberate attempt at providing this. The numbers might even be more.
Yeah.
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 A philanthropist helping.
Talking about deliberate provision and target and the stratification, as an organization that really have been focusing on out-of-school children, it is also of concern to us in terms of the stratification that we noted in this budget allocation, nothing has been provided for in terms of programs. I mean, to support program deal with the out-of-school children problem. There isn't any earmarked fund support for the complementary education agency that is supposed to support out-of-school children.
Part of what you do.
And that is what we do. I mean, the complementary basic education program is an accelerator and a stopgap measure to ensuring that children who are left out of school due to no reason, no fault of theirs, because but as a result of the systemic failures of our education system, or get a second chance to education by providing that as related program in literacy, numeracy, and life skills for a period during which time they will then be mainstream into formal school. And this program has actually proven to be very effective in tackling the out-of-school children problem. So it is a bit worrying to us as an organization that have really seen the achievements that this program has brought into our education system, that this budget has actually shown a blind side to this critical problem.
In fact, with that then, Ayuba, beyond the budget and the work that government ought to do, you've taken charge, you're doing something about it. You need help.
Yes.
What do you need?
First and foremost, we need effective partnership. Like I indicated in the beginning, we cannot do it all by ourselves. We need a concerted voice, and part of what we need is what we're actually doing, partnering with other agencies like-minded to bring to fore the challenges that are facing. But beyond that is also an issue of resources.
Yeah.
Largely, as an organization, our resources sources of funding has been heavily dependent on outside foreign governments and foreign philanthropies. And knowing currently what is happening on the global stage in terms of the development space, where with what is happening in the US, where foreign aid is being, priorities are being changed in terms of the foreign aid, then it is coming as a huge blow to us, because as an organization that have relied on these kinds of funding to do the work that we do. When we started in the 90s, Danida, that is the Danish government, really supported us so much, and to do the kind of work, to provide the complementary basic education program. For well about 2 decades, they've stayed with us. Then, having noticed the successes, the great successes of the complementary basic education program to dealing with the out-of-school children problem in Ghana, other development partners came on board, the DFIDs, the USIDs, they came on board to support. And I must tell you that to date, the School for Life alone, through the complementary basic education program, have reached out to over 450,000 children.
450,000?
50,000 children from when we started to date. And these children, I tell you, but for that intervention, will not have had access to basic education.
That's a success story, and I'm sorry I have to take the wind out of the sail because we are running against time. But what I'm hearing from Widad is that you don't actually have enough or non-existent at all local philanthropists or investors or, you know, people who just want to come on board and help, funders and so on and so forth. This is a big platform. I think we can appeal to those who are watching us right now who, if they have the means to help, there are so many organizations who I believe might use this as a corporate social responsibility opportunity. So let's speak to them.
Yes, so we speak to, I mean, philanthropists in Ghana who can support our work. Like with that said, we are actually doing a lot. I mean, reaching out to children in communities that otherwise would have just been left out. Sometimes we go to a community and it's about 10 kilometers from a closest school, but we are in the community, we help the children to learn some foundational literacy, and then we support them to get to school. Without money, we can't do all this. And so we appeal to local philanthropists, to corporate organizations who can support our cause, that they should join us and they will not be disappointed, because we are judicious about what we do, and we make sure that every cedi is used to the benefit of the poor child. And so, I mean, we need funding, and like Wida has said, though international donors are cutting down, U.S. government has cancelled our project. One of our biggest projects has been cancelled. And the Dutch government is cutting down, I mean, aid. The Belgian government is cutting down aid. And it's actually hitting us, but we need to continue to do what we do. And so we call on corporate organizations, corporate Ghana, and then individual philanthropists to support our work.
Thank you so much.
To touch the lives of children.
Right. Then?
Well, I guess we must learn to aid ourselves.
Yes.
That's the whole point. We must learn to feed ourselves, aid ourselves, so that if aid is cut from elsewhere, we can continue. And I'd like to add my voice to that call. I think since 2016, 2017, I've been following part of the work of School for Life, and they've done some amazing things in the past, especially in deprived communities in the northern belt of the country, and it's worthy of support. Thank you so much for what you continue doing for Mother Ghana.
Thank you so much for having us and for your collaboration. We really cherish it.
We are grateful.
We dare for you.
We dare for you.
Thank you so much.
Widad Saibu is Director, School for Life, and Ayuba Abubakar is Head of Programs and Partnerships, School for Life. They're doing marvelous work trying to get children to be educated, doing the work that government ought to be doing. Stay with us, and when we return, we'll bring you so much more action in the next 30 minutes or so before we wrap up. Remember, the AM show is brought to you by Waylead Properties. We'll be right back. Thank you.